Hey guys, Zora here. Welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Adventures. Last time, we've gotten a lot of headway as to what really happened between this cabin and Asagi's cabin next door. So it turns out that, according to, I guess, everyone, it was nothing more than an unfortunate accident caused by a little tiny black cat called Darka, who is adorable, and I want to see her as badly as I do, but we don't know where she is. And it wasn't caused by a random snake that was in this room for whatever reason. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of questions yet to be answered, and Nicolina seems like she's still hiding something. So while this is kind of appropriate where technically no one's really at fault, in the end, we're gonna see through this to the end and find out the truth. Yes. What should we ponder first? Is the victim who lost his life in a cabin that was bolted shut from the inside? Was this truly an unfortunate accident? Or was it in fact no accident at all? That is what we must establish in the first instance. But we've already established it, haven't we? The man tripped over the kitten that had climbed into his cabin via the ventilator. Tragic, yes, but still an accident.
Hold it!
Wait! Let's just take a step back. It doesn't make sense if that's really what happened, does it? I'm going to have to ask you to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. Yes, it's starting to take shape now. There's a clear contradiction between the facts and Miss Pavlova's story here. The evidence is right there in Kazuma's cabin. It's undeniable. His death couldn't possibly have been a mere accident. Really? Let us show our hand, Mr. Naruhodo. Time to present the evidence. The evidence that proves unequivocally that the victim's death was no mere accident. Did I say that word correctly? Unequivocally. I think I did. Oh shoot, hang on. Would it be the final words? Because if it was an accident, there's no way if he does know Russian, he didn't tell us, and there's a high chance that this was forged.
Yes!
Right? Yeah. The truth is clearly recorded in this photographic print. There's no way that Mr. Asagi could have left this message on the floor. That scribe is Russian, isn't it? Indeed it is. The word written means wardrobe. I see what you mean. Most people would leave a dying message in their native language. Japanese, in this case. But maybe he was studying Russian. It is a simple language. He could have picked it up very fast. I don't know about that. That doesn't seem likely. That's actually not the point. It makes no difference whether you knew Russian or not. Sorry? What do you mean? Exactly what I said before. There is no way that Mr. Asagi could have left this message on the floor. And the reason why is clearly explained in here. Damage to the cervical vertebrae. I don't know why I keep on wanting to say cerebral. Resulting in instant death. Instant death. Which means, after the victim fell to the floor, he couldn't possibly have written anything. Because he was already dead! That's not the only reason either. There's something else we found in Mr. Asagi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there if what Miss Pavlova told us was true. What? So, Susato-san has noticed it too, then. I just want to record, y'all. Why you gotta make such large vroom vroom noises outside? Putting this message on the floor aside, there's something else that gives the truth away. Another piece of evidence proves that this was no mere accident. In other words, this one I'm actually not too sure about? It's not the diary. I'm gonna guess it's the mark on the floor or the book, because if she went to, you know, fetch the bell, why didn't she grab the entire bell? Let's see what happens with the bell first.
Yes!
This piece of broken glass next to the mark on the floor. But that's the glass bell that the kitten had around its neck. We already know all about it. It was broken in half when the victim tripped over the cat and fell. So we already have a satisfactory explanation. Where's the flaw in that logic? Unfortunately, there's a very big flaw. A fatal flaw. What? If that's really what happened, then how did one half the bell end up back here in this cabin? Yes, remember that we found the other half of the glass bell in the waste paper basket. Would you care to explain that, Miss Pavlova? Oh no. Both these pieces of evidence clearly point to the same conclusion. That when Mr. Asagi died last night in his cabin, there was someone else in the room. And that same person deliberately arranged the scene to disguise the truth, in order to cover up his or her own guilt. Yes, there was someone else present in Mr. Asagi's—
Hold it!
Oh, I didn't think he would actually, you know, say words. You are wasting time. Someone else was there? Duh, of course, we know this. What are you talking about? Bulkhead was bolt shut from the inside. There was no way in or out. Oh, yes. And only other person in cabin when young student died was you.
Yes!
It's true. I was in the cabin when it happened. You were shut inside the cabin wardrobe, to be precise about the details. But I don't know Russian. There's no way I would have left that message. Not would have. There's no way you could have left that message, to be precise about the details. Would you mind? Forgive me, my dear fellow. As I was saying, the person in question wrote the word wardrobe in Russian on the floor, in an attempt to incriminate me for the crime, even though I've been asleep in there the entire time. And then, the same person picked up the broken glass bell that had fallen on the floor, for fear of it becoming evidence that would show how Mr. Asaki really died. But why wouldn't this person have taken all the pieces of the bell away? Leaving half behind was always going to raise questions. Yes, well, it was past 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning. The cabin would have been quite dark. The single, small lamp suspended from the ceiling would barely have casted any light onto the floor there. Maybe? There's no window around here, so I would think that whatever we're seeing right now should be sufficient enough? Question mark? Little wonder there that the culprit failed to notice a fragment of the tiny item. You all suspect me, don't you?
Hold it!
Seaman Stroganoff! Nina is woman of sea. She is daughter of strong sailor. 2 years ago, they noticed her dancing skills, and she went away to join ballet company. But before, she was dancer on this ship, a member of ship's band. You do not accuse ship's angel of being criminal. Ah, so that's it. You say that when young student died, Nina was there in his cabin. But that is not possible! I give my tooth! Well, this is all most interesting. And why would you give your tooth, pray? How can you be so sure? You are a great detective. You should know. Look truth in eyes. Cabin bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. Nobody could go into cabin. Not Nina, not anyone. Or you want to tell me the killer can walk through locked doors? Yet, it's impossible. Ugh, he's right. But wait, I've read about this in detective stories. People often tie thread around door latches so that they can open and close them from the outside. Ah, the one thing that she was actually resisting against before, she's trying to use it to her advantage. Thread? Are you stupid? These bulkheads are not barn doors. Certainly not. These are watertight doors, as one would expect to find on any modern steamship. Constructed of heavy steel, with not a gap in sight. No threads or needles or magnets could have been used. No, of course not. I thought so too. But Mr. Naruhodo suggested it earlier, so... Chisato-san, how could he shift it onto me like that? So Seaman Stroganoff has a valid point. The cabin door couldn't have been bolted shut from the outside. Not necessarily. What? I put it to you that I could bolt this cabin door without laying a finger on it. And in this very cabin, we can see the traces of the method I have in mind having been used before. I don't believe it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe you know what I mean, don't you? A way to shut the bolt of the cabin door from the outside? One way does spring to mind, yes. Do you really know what Mr. Sholmes means, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, and so should you, because we've seen it happen. Indeed we have. So would you care to do the honors, Mr. Naruhodo? Point out the telltale signs of the method that was used to slide the cabin door bolt across from the outside. I believe what you are talking about, good sir, since for whatever ungodly reason, I did the same thing that I chastised Susato about and cleaned up the scene except this.
Yes!
Look at the bookcase there. See how all the books and things on it have toppled over? That must have happened when the ship made its emergency stop before. Yes, that's right. It's a very powerful vessel after all. When the engines are thrown into reverse, a violent jolt goes across the entire ship. Any small objects that aren't fastened down are bound to fall over. I believe, yes, it's what's known as the force of inertia acting on objects. Is there nothing Susato-san doesn't know? Or that isn't in her book at least. Well, whatever it's called, the same force that pushed over those books on the bookcase also made something else in this cabin move. The bolt on the cabin door. It was very obvious just after the emergency stop that the ship made earlier. We had come into this cabin not long before, and we haven't bolted the door. But then... Hello! Is anyone in there? Shout if you need assistance! Oh, that sounds like... Inspector Hosonaga. Oh yes! That's it! When the ship stopped suddenly, the bolt flew across and locked the door. Yes, it's made of metal, but it's small and light enough to be moved by the ship's sudden change of speed. Or the force of inertia, if you want to call it. Are you trying to say that last night, after Mr. Asagi was killed, they do a Big ol' zoom in on the door. That's a very loud clank for the little doory door. The Suspiria made another emergency stop? When I woke up this morning and looked around the cabin, I thought it looked a little odd. All the books on the shelves had toppled over, and all the ornaments. It was almost as if someone had run their hand across the shelves and deliberately knocked everything over. Oh yes, I remember that. And I stood them all up again, didn't I? Then when we came into this cabin, we were surprised to see the same thing in here. All the books and everything had toppled over, just like in Mr. Asagi's cabin. Oh my! Do you have anything to say about this, Miss Pavlova? Are you out of your mind? You say Buria made emergency stop? It does seem a little far-fetched. How could that possibly have happened? Unless you're saying that the culprit is actually someone from the engine room. Oh, it is simple enough. Are you forgetting the button in the passageway outside? Used to trigger the emergency alarm. Oh yes, of course. There was a notice, wasn't there? Telling you only to press the button in times of emergency. On dark nights when the fog is dense, the captain cannot afford to rely on the eyes of his lookout alone. Hence the placement of a number of buttons around the vessel to allow any crewman to raise the alarm. The sort of button one is almost compelled to press to satisfy one's curiosity. Wait, it was you? When the button is pressed, two things happen in the interest of safety. The emergency alarm bell rings, and the vessel comes to a complete stop. As indeed it did a little earlier today. Did you press the button? Mr. Sholmes? Surely it wasn't you who... As I always say, a button has but one purpose in life. To be pressed, whatever the occasion. He sounds almost proud of himself. How dare you mess with ship! I report you to Captain! You are in much trouble now! Now, I'm sure all that can wait until later. Let us not overlook the fact that we have now learned a valuable lesson. When the vessel makes an emergency stop, the bolts on the cabin door slide closed. So, what we must now consider... Yes, it all comes down to one thing now. Last night, after what happened to Mr. Asagi, did the ship make an emergency stop? Or did it not? You are idiots! Buria is a huge ship with many passengers. If we make emergency stop, even in the middle of night, there would be chaos everywhere. What are your thoughts, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, it's certainly possible that some kind of emergency happened last night. We have evidence to support that idea. Really? What evidence, Mr. Naruhodo? Fascinating. Do show us, my good man. What evidence promotes the theory that some emergency gripped this vessel last night? Ah, that is a good question. What, the log? Yeah, because there's nothing that happened any time after 2 a.m. And... yeah, the post-mortem is between 1 and 2 a.m., so this would have to be the only thing about that, right? Seaman Stroganoff. It's your duty to patrol the first-class area of the ship, isn't that right? That is correct. Why? And the ship's log here. This would be where you would record the details of your duties. What are you doing with that? That is mine! Ah, you rather carelessly left it atop the little makeshift bureau in the passageway out there. But as responsible passengers, we took it into our care with a mind to return it to you later. I left it there on purpose. That is where I put it always. The point is, looking at what you usually record, it's clear that under normal circumstances, you write the phrase "nothing to report" every 30 minutes. But from 2 o'clock last night until first light this morning, nothing was recorded at all. Nothing recorded in the log? That is... duh! Because nothing happened! But if nothing happened, you would normally write "nothing to report," wouldn't you? Indeed so, which tells us that shortly after 2 a.m., something happened here aboard the SS Buria. Something sufficiently significant, wow, that's a lot of S's, to make you forget to fill in the ship's log impact. Are you suggesting that the ship really did make an emergency stop in the middle of the night? Stop talking rubbish! If I am perfectly honest, I find that a little hard to believe myself. Oh? Why? Well, because if something as major as an emergency stop really had happened, surely all of us would have noticed. That's very true. Thanks to the emergency stop we experienced earlier, we all know what it feels like now. The ship lurched so violently, and the alarm bell was so loud. I can't imagine that anyone would sleep through that, even if it happened in the dead of night. Well, no. That's a good point. What of the throbbing? Sorry? What do you mean? Your head, man. The throbbing of your head since this morning. We all have suffered with it. Oh, yes. I have had a headache, you're right. In fact, I haven't been feeling myself since I woke up today. Nor have I. My head has been feeling heavy ever since dawn. Yes, you've all been afflicted, haven't you? Just as I suspected. He's right, my head's been throbbing today, too. And since eating dinner yesterday evening, everything has felt sort of hazy. I can't really remember anything that happened after I climbed back inside the wardrobe. Then, the first thing I noticed this morning was the throbbing pain in my head. I had already been dragged out of the wardrobe. And had those handcuffs put on me by that point. Why didn't I wake up when all of this was happening to me? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo. You boarded this vessel as a stowaway, didn't you? Oh, well, yes. Sorry. The stowaway class of accommodation doesn't usually include meals. What did you survive on? Ah, well, Kazuma looked after me. He was always happy to share his meals. So you enjoyed some of the whole roast chicken dish that was served yesterday evening, I take it? Yes, in fact, I ate all of it. Kazuma wasn't fond of chicken. Oh, really? So the victim didn't eat any of the chicken at all? That's right, he didn't touch it. Is that relevant? My dear fellow, does that not strike you? Mr. Sholmes, do you mean to say that there was something wrong with the chicken? I do. No! Really? Is that really true? The meal prepped prepared for the passengers last night has been tampered with. Tampered with by the addition of a soporific designed to induce a very deep slumber in those who consume it. Soporific? Basically, sleeping drugs. A sleeping drug? Do you mean whoever did this laced every meal with a sleeping drug so no one would notice the ship's emergency stop? Mr. Naruhodo! Of course that's not what Mr. Sholmes means. What a far-fetched idea! Precisely. Lacing every meal of every passenger on board with a soporific drug would certainly be impossible. Unless, that is, every single member of the crew was a conspirator. What? Mr. Sholmes! Well, seaman? I'm sorry to say that any more deception in this matter will get you nowhere. If you refuse to talk, there would have to be an inquiry made through the shipping company, of course. And were that to happen, every member of the crew, and the captain himself, would be hauled over the coals. For aiding and abetting a renegade. Please, no more. I will tell everything. Eh? I cannot make problems like this for everyone anymore. These crewmen are your former comrades, I believe. Yes. So when I decided to run away, I asked them to help me. We all agreed to help. Everyone, together. She threw away everything. Her fame in the ballet, Mother Russia. We all wanted to help our angel. I don't believe it. You are right. We put sleeping drug in chicken last night. Yes, I remember now. I did notice chewing on a lump of something strange and bitter at one point. Duh. We cannot make all drug. How do you say? Dissolve. Ugh. Talk about heavy seasoning. At midnight, in waters near Shanghai, we brought our angel on board. She was helped by comrade on shore with small fishing boat. While all the passengers of the SS Buria slept soundly. Thanks to the almost magical effects of the slumber-inducing potion their evening meals had contained. So, if that's what's happened, the only person awake on the ship last night were the crew, people who disliked chicken, and the newly boarded passenger, Miss Pavlova. And that means it would have been possible for you. You could have used the emergency stop trick to lock Kazuma's cabin door. But how does that make sense? Surely every cabin door would have ended up locked in that case, and there would have been complete chaos. Oh, I wouldn't say so. What? Ah, of course. Just like us, all the other passengers would have eaten their evening meal of chicken in their cabins. After which they would have been overwhelmed by tiredness because of the sleeping drug. Quite. And accordingly, all passengers were already in their cabins for the night. Yes! The overwhelming majority of passengers would have habitually sleep with their cabin doors bolted anyway. And so not one of them would have found it remarkable to find the door locked in the morning. In summary, in order to fasten the bolt of a single cabin door in the ship, The culprit brought the entire vessel to an emergency stop in the early hours of the morning. You have talked a long time and said many things. What is point? The point is what I said earlier. There was somebody else present on the scene when the victim lost his life last night. Someone who left a message in Russian on the floor in an attempt to incriminate another. Someone who tried desperately to hide the broken fragments of glass that would reveal the culprit's identity. And someone who abused the ship's emergency stop procedure in order to lock a door. All told, a busy night. But... I don't know anything about this. I'm just a little girl. You like to speak with your long English words and explain your clever ideas. But I am sailor, and sailors don't listen to long, boring stories. We don't believe. Sailors like me, we trust only what we see with our eyes. A laudable trait. You know, I have to agree with the sailor on that point, though. What? I'm quite of the same disposition, my good man. Observation to me is everything. Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? Do you hear it? That accusatory cry of guilt on the wind. What accusatory cry of guilt? Sorry, you've lost me. Proof of involvement, man. But you can't hear such a call with your ears. No, you must hear it with your eyes, for observation is the basis of all deduction. What are you talking about? I believe the time has come for one final logic and reasoning spectacular to expose the truth. I didn't think there was gonna be one more. Oh my dear God. We're actually just gonna go ahead and cut it off here. Jesus, this is going on for a much longer than I'm expecting. But yeah, there's more to the story. And now we are coming up to the end of this case, I assume. I really hope that we are coming up to the end of the case. So with that said, thank you guys for watching. This is Zora signing out, and I'll see you guys for our last Logic and Reasoning Spectacular.